Wow, what a difference the last few months have been in all of our lives. We have COVID-19, a government shut down our economy, shelter in place. I mean, it's been absolutely crazy out there. Are you concerned at all about your overall finances? I'm sure you are, so stick around, folks. We're season 6, first episode. Why not start in a pandemic? Super excited to be here with you today. My name's Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm president here at Pure Financial Advisors. And of course, season 6 wouldn't be season 6 without the big man. There's Big Al Clopine. He's sitting right over there. We have a phenomenal show lined up because here's the deal. When you look at people right now, over the next 6 months to 24 months, according to Fidelity, almost half, right over half of us, 60%, are extremely concerned about their finances and their job security. But what about their health, their loved ones? The past, 4 months have been absolutely extraordinary, and now is the time to really take a look at your finances so you don't make those emotional mistakes, and that is today's financial focus. So look at this study here. This is by Elon University. I've never heard of Elon University, but is that right?
That was me. My crack research team found that.
Let's take a look at USA's biggest worries that we're facing right now. But 78% are worried about a family member's illness. 74%. A close second is about their overall financial well-being. We have layoffs, furloughs, right? The unemployment rate is through the roof. So it's no wonder why so many people are worried about their finances. Let's break this thing down for you. Let's bring in the big man right now, Big Al Clopine.
Joe, this is an extraordinary time, and a lot of people are worried about their finances, and so I'm really glad to be able to do a show about it today. And I think what we ought to focus on right off the bat is people's portfolios. And when you think about it, do you have the right portfolio? And in a lot of cases, people have no idea whether they have the right portfolio or not. And you tend to make emotional decisions in these kinds of situations because of fear. Fear takes over. Sometimes people end up selling when they shouldn't be selling. Sometimes people end up buying stocks or changing their portfolio when they shouldn't. Do you have the right portfolio for you? So we'll spend some time on that. The CARES Act that was recently passed to kind of help us get through this period of time has several tax opportunities that we want to make you aware of. And then finally, really to create some peace of mind in this period of time, making sure you have the right financial plan is key. And Joe, I think at this point, I mean, like I say, we'll start with the portfolio, make sure people have the right portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's been unsettling, to say the least. Right. I mean, we have stock market crashes, and then all of a sudden it fully recovers, and then we're seeing volatility again. You look at the news, some days it's great, and some days it's awful. And then when you have all that information, that's when we tend to make really bad decisions because it's our emotion takes over. And I mean, this is prime example of here's a globally equity portfolio over the last 20 years, from 2000 to 2019. If you stayed fully invested, you received 8%. But what does the average equity investor do, right? So if I'm investing, they do 4%. How can that be? If I stayed investment, I got 8, but the average investor, all of us, we get 4. And if you look at inflation at 2, we're netting out 2% on our money over the last 20 years. It's not going to get us there because we're buying and selling at the wrong time. Right? So when we hear the news, when the market goes down, that's when we get scared and we pull the trigger. But then, oh, things are going to get better, that's when we buy. But look at the big run-up that we saw in the market. It started in March. I mean, there was terrible news in March. We thought, you know, everything is going to shut down. We'd never get back to work. But now slowly the economy is opening up, people are getting back to work, and things are looking, you know, a little bit lighter.
Yeah, at least at the moment, as we film this, right?
Right, yeah. You know, and it's because of the market's forward-looking, right? So they're already looking ahead, and it's so hard to try to time this. And you know, this is just proof for the pudding.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, one of the most important things is to think about your own portfolio, and is it the right portfolio for you? Make sure it's based upon your needs, not what's going on in the economy. And this is what's hard, because you need to spend a little bit of time figuring out what rate of return you actually need. We're going to show you how to calculate that here in just a moment. Once you figure out the rate of return that you need, then you work backwards to design the safest portfolio to be able to create that rate of return. Why take more risk than you need to take? And of course, that's an allocation between stocks and bonds. Taking a look at that. Along with that, especially if you're in retirement or close to retirement, make sure you have a lot of safe income, because you may need to be pulling those assets out in down markets. You don't want to pull money out of your stocks when they're down.
You know, I think really good points, Al, but it's all about the planning and just putting pen to paper here. So looking at an example is that, let's say you want to spend $60,000, and I would encourage all of you to do this, because this will help you make better decisions. It will give you more confidence, especially in times like this when you invest. Bear with me. Let's say if you want to spend $60,000 per year, and you have a fixed income source, so Social Security and pensions. Maybe that brings in 40. So you're going to be short roughly about $20,000 that needs to come from an overall portfolio, right? And let's say you're a diligent saver and you've saved about $550,000 per year. So the first step of a financial plan to make sure that you can have the income that you need with the assets that you've built is you do some math. You divide that shortfall by the amount of money that you've accumulated. So if I do this math, that's about 3.6% distribution. But then you have to add in some inflation. If you look at a historic inflation rate, it's about 2%. So you add those two together. So my expected return of what I would like to do to give me the income that I need plus inflation is roughly around 6%, right? So then you want to start constructing a portfolio that will get you that 6%. It's not going to happen every single year, but a lot of you are trying to build a portfolio that will give you, let's say, a hypothetical 8 or 10% rate of return, which is way too much risk once you start taking distributions from the portfolio. So Al, I think people just do a little bit of math, then they can start realizing, hey, you know what, I don't need to shoot for the moon here. I can be a little bit more conservative in my portfolio to accomplish my goals.
Well, that's right, Joe. And I think one of the first questions we get is what can I make? You know, how much can I make? And that's not the right question. The question is what I need, what do I need, and then what kind of portfolio should I have to be able to obtain that? And again, in retirement, safety is everything. Now, if you need more than about 6%, it may be a little bit much. So you may need to cut expenses or downsize or get some part-time income.
Hey folks, stick around, because the CARES Act was just signed into law. There's significant tax law that we want to share with you that can bring some added benefit in a time like this. So now is the time to act. The only thing that we can control potentially is the taxes that we pay, not necessarily the markets. So you don't want to miss this. Show's called Your Money or Wealth. We'll be back in just a second. Hey, welcome back to the show, folks. Show's called Your Money or Wealth. Joe Anderson, Big Al. We're back talking financial planning. Stick around this segment. The CARES Act that was just signed a few months ago had some tax law that is going to affect your overall retirement accounts. And Al and I have some ideas for you. But before we get to that, let's get to your true-false question.
I already received my required minimum distribution for 2020, so I cannot take advantage of the CARES Act rule that allows me to skip it. Joe, that could be true or false, depending upon your situation. So why don't we go over maybe a couple ways that if you took your required minimum distribution, you could actually undo it. And I guess
so. This guy's pretty. He's tight.
He is tight.
He's on it. I mean, this bill just passed, and he's already saying, "Hey."
That's right. So we should say right off the bat that you don't have to take a required minimum distribution for 2020. That's part of the CARES Act. But what if you already did? So there's one quick way that that you could undo this, and that is if you took your required minimum distribution within the last 60 days, you could roll it back into the IRA. No harm, no foul, and then it's not taxable as income. So that's one way, but I think a lot of folks, Joe, have already taken that more than 60 days ago, so there's another approach there.
Yeah, I mean, this is... only a few times they've done this, right? To waive the required minimum distributions altogether.
Right.
And so the reason for that is that when the markets go down, they don't want you to pull money out, sell shares, right? And then, especially if you're not spending the money. But yeah, you can put the money back with your 60-day rollover, or there's the CRD, or the coronavirus-related distribution. So you have then 3 years to put those dollars back. So the coronavirus-related distribution is a fairly interesting, I guess, bill or concept, is that when things go bad, a lot of people's liquid assets are sitting in a retirement account. And so let's say if I needed cash, where do I go? I go to my 401k plan, and I take the money out of my 401k plan, and let's say I'm 40 years old. I'm going to get a 10% penalty from the feds. I'm going to get a state of California penalty. I'm going to pay federal tax and state tax, and I'm going to lose half of it. Right, so I take out the $100,000 and I need to spend it because I'm in dire straits. Then next year I got a $50,000 tax bill. It's like, well, I don't have 50 grand because I had to pull out 100,000 from the overall account. And so they realized, hey, you know what? Let's open this up. Let's be a little bit more lenient on how people can access their retirement accounts. So this is a fairly interesting bill or law that they put in the CARES Act.
It is, Joe, and it starts out by stating that you could pull out $100,000 from your IRA at any age without penalty, as long as you qualify for this corona-related distribution. And so no penalty, so that's cool. If it's through a 401k, you don't have to do any withholding. It's taxed actually over 3 years, and you can actually roll it back in within 3 years and pay no tax at all. So a lot of people are asking, well, how do I qualify, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, a few different things to qualify, and this is broad, and we're still getting a little bit more information on this, Al. It's, all right, well, first of all, you got to be diagnosed with COVID, or a spouse or dependent. Maybe that you had any type of financial distress, either through a layoff, maybe furloughed, reduced hours, small business owner, right? But my whole business got shut down. I can't work. And then any other reason that the IRS deems okay. So they realized when they put the CARES Act out, this was signed and put into law in the end of March, right? Things were, just starting to bubble, and they put together this bill of $2 trillion relief, and then they kicked it out. So what they're, I guess, assuming, what I'm assuming is that a lot of people are going to qualify for this for multiple different reasons. So any other reason. So we'll see what that actually means. But I think they wanted to widen the aperture, I guess, for lack of a better word, so people would not get hit with these huge penalties.
Yeah, and you're right, Joe. It is pretty broad, whether you or your dependent or spouse got the disease, or whether you lost income, or whether you got laid off, or even if you had less hours, or if you're self-employed and making less income. A lot of people can qualify.
So for those of you that do qualify, here's some planning opportunity within this, is that first of all, you want to make sure that you understand what tax bracket that you're in. Because as I said before, right, let's say in how the tax system works, and this is for a married couple, forgive me for single people, right? Just cut this in half. So the first $20,000 of income, you're taxed at 10%. And then from 20,000 to 80, you're taxed at 12%. And then 80 to 171, you're taxed at 22%, and so on and so forth. So a little bit is taxed at 10, 12, 22, and just kind of follow the numbers here. So let's say if I'm in this tax bracket, the 22% tax bracket, and I had to pull that $100,000 out, right, that's going to kick me here to the 24% tax bracket. The Jobs Act is actually going to increase all of these tax brackets in 5 years. They sunset, so 2026. So 12% is going to go back to 15, 22 is going to go to 25, 24 to 28, and so on. So right now we're in relatively low tax environment, okay? So you first figure out what bracket that you're in, okay? And then it's like, well, what bracket am I going to be in? And then you take a look at some planning. So right now in these tax deferred accounts, which we've been talking about, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, and things like that, is that there's an RMD, right, a required minimum distribution, that is waived. You don't have to take the required distribution. However, Do you think it might make sense to still take the RMD? Alan, I might think it makes sense. Why? Because then you can start bleeding dollars out of this account, because as tax rates go up, more dollars are going to be taxed here. So does it make sense to take the money out and buy that tax cheap? Yes. But where should you put it? Maybe you put it up here into a Roth. This is called a conversion. This is the only year, because they waived RMDs, that you could potentially take your required distribution and put it into a Roth IRA. Another, let's say if a CRD, your coronavirus related distribution, you could pull $100,000 from this account and pop it over here, right? If you qualify, pay the tax over 3 years. So again, you're slowly trying to bleed a little bit of these dollars out at lower tax rates to put them in a better tax favored pool, okay? Because when it comes time to create income, if everything is coming from here, it's going to be taxed at ordinary income rates. But if I have dollars in each of these different pools, then I can control the taxes on the distribution. I'm going to pull a little bit from here, here, and here, and then that can really reduce my taxes long term. So I think the CARES Act, there's two things, Al, that might make sense for some people in just looking at the law and saying, hey, can I benefit from this? First of all, do I qualify? And then just using understanding taxes a little bit better to take advantage.
I think it's key, because if you're over 72 and you have a required minimum distribution, might be a great opportunity to get some money in a Roth by doing a Roth conversion, which you can do at any age. Now, those of you that are younger than 72, you don't have to do a required minimum distribution, but if you qualify for the CRD, you pull some money out outside of retirement, now you got more tax diversification, which is subject to capital gain income, which is cheaper than ordinary income. And for some of you, you don't have an emergency fund, and this is a way to get that, as well as just have extra funds outside of retirement for flexibility in the future.
You know, there's a couple of other things real quick. There's the stimulus rebates of $1,200 and $2,400, unemployment compensation. There was another $600 that they put in there for the first 4 months. Then there was the PPP loans and for small businesses. There's a lot of things that are jam-packed within the CARES Act. For more information, we put together an ebook. Brian Perry, our advanced Executive Vice President at Peer Financial Advisors, wrote this ebook and talks all about the CARES Act and some planning opportunities that might make sense, and really how to plan for kind of these unprecedented times. So click on that special offer, go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com, click on that special offer. That is our gift to you for free. It is revamp your retirement, doing some financial planning, right, in pretty crazy times. So go to Your Money, Your Wealth, click on that special offer, and we will get that right to you. Hey, welcome back to the show. The show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson, certified financial planner, and Big Al, hanging out, talking a little CARES Act, financial planning, what you do, and kind of the crazy times we're living in right now. We got to wrap things up with Ask the Experts, which we're really excited for. We got some really good questions. But before we get to any of that, let's go to the true-false question.
If you were laid off because of the pandemic and you are 60 years old, you should claim your Social Security benefits. And the answer to that question is false. You're not even allowed to claim them. 62 is the youngest age that you can claim your benefits. 66 and 2 months is the full retirement age for the current year. And 70 is the latest age. Now, if you claim it at 62, you have about a 25% reduction in benefits. You get your full benefit at retirement age, 66 and 2 months. At age 70, it's a little over 30% higher. So just be aware of the ages. You want to actually delay your Social Security as long as you possibly can, unless you need it and you're of old enough age to be able to claim it.
Well, I mean, if you look, you know, at age 60, you can claim your benefit as a survivor benefit. So if, God forbid, if your spouse died prematurely, you could still claim your Social Security at 60. But some of the questions and some of the things that we're getting is that, well, what's going on with Social Security because of all the unemployment and everything else? You know, should I claim it right away because who knows it's going to be there and everything else? Be careful with some of that type of talk. The trust fund will run out in 2035, but still 85 or 80 some odd % is still going to be be in the trust fund to get paid out. So proper, really, Social Security planning is key, especially when we make knee-jerk reactions. Is that, hey, I lost my job, let's just go ahead and start claiming Social Security. Maybe I don't want to go back to work. So you want to make sure that you have a really solid foundation on every decision that you make in regards to your investment, taxes, your cash flow, and the like. So really looking at an element of a financial plan is key.
It is, and when you think about a financial plan, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just start with what your goals are, when you want to retire, or what your lifestyle is going to look like in retirement, or even where you want to go on vacation, saving up for that, or buying a home, or kids' college. What are the goals? So start with that, and then come up with having awareness of your income and expenses. And we hate to use the word budget because no one likes to do a budget, but at least you have to have a sense of what income you have coming in and what's going out. Then you want to make sure you establish an emergency plan, emergency fund, I guess I should say. Then make sure you have a savings plan so that you can get to retirement. And then what if things go wrong? Like right now, the pandemic, what's your plan B? So these are all the things that should be in a well-written financial plan.
Yeah, but it's always kind of a little bit too late, right? It's like, oh, it hit, and then now let's start putting my emergency fund together when I don't necessarily have the job. And so all of this stuff is common sense, and it's easy, right, when you read it or when you watch it, but it's very challenging and difficult to implement. So that's why we'll keep encouraging you just to put together a simple financial plan on a napkin. I don't care, right? Write down your goals. If you write down your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, you're that much more apt to accomplish them. So
yeah, and Fidelity just did a study on financial plans through this crisis, and they found that those that have financial plans, 90% of them feel less at stress. They have less fear because they know they've got a well thought out plan. And you are right, Joe, because in a time like this, it's hard to create a plan if you don't have one, but at least be thinking about it, create what you can, so for going forward, you don't get too far off track, because a lot of folks right now are not able to save, but make sure when you do get back to work that you get that plan in place.
So what, Fidelity ran a study? And 90%.
No, those that
I mean, you don't think there's a little bias there? It's like, let me survey everyone that has a financial plan, and then guess what? Oh, look at how much more money I have,
and see how they feel. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, I admit it's a little biased, but nevertheless, I think people that do have financial plans are less fearful in times like this.
Hey, Al, it's that time of the show where we switch gears a little bit and we go to Ask the Experts.
I was laid off because of the coronavirus, but I was a couple years away from retiring. I have a pension from my company. Are there advantages to waiting to see if I get my job back? This is Mark in Escondido. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I think what we talked about before is that, you know, it looks like, all right, well, should I get forced into an early retirement? I was looking to retire, I got laid off, you know, because of COVID, or maybe I'm furloughed. You know, what is the strategy? I'm still waiting for a pension. There's a lot of, I guess, pros and cons to each of that decision. If the pro of retiring earlier is, like, you're getting the hell out of the job force. That's good, right? You can play golf and do all the things that you want to do and enjoy your life. Or the bad thing is maybe you're not financially prepared. So if you work another couple of years, that could add significantly more cash flow on the back end. So, you know, Al, if you work 2 more years, right, you're saving a little bit more into your 401k plan, you're postponing your Social Security, you know, so there's a lot of levers, I guess, that you can pull depending on really what they're trying to accomplish.
Another big thing is health insurance. So if you're younger than 65, then if you retire early, you've got to cover your own health insurance because that's before Medicare. And that can be rather expensive. I mean, that could be $1,000 a month or more. So just be aware of that. Let's go to question number 2. I'm in my 70s. I want to convert to a Roth IRA. Do I have to take my 2020 RMD first? Julie from Del Mar. The answer is, first of all, you don't have to take a required minimum distribution for 2020. And typically, you do have to take your RMD before you do a Roth conversion, but because there's no required minimum distribution for this year, this rule doesn't apply. So do your conversion whenever.
What is the peer takeaway for today? Well, first off, you got to take a look at your portfolio. We have crazy volatility in the overall markets. What are you doing when the markets drop 1,000 points and up 1,000 points? We talked about the CARES Act. There's some tax planning opportunities for all of us to really look at. Tax rates potentially could be going up, so does it make sense to accelerate some income now? Or if you feel that tax rates are going to go down, maybe you create some deduction. And then also just figuring out your overall financial plan. Get a strategy together, because who knows what the future is going to hold, right? We woke up January 1st, we all had our financial goals and our New Year's resolutions. You know, just a few short months later, everything is out the window. So we'll get over this, we'll get through this together. We really appreciate you hanging out with us this morning. For Big Al Clopine, I'm Joe Anderson. We're really happy to be back the start of season 6. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you next time.